Hey, real estate agents, welcome to Making a Smarter Agent, your program to find out all the tips and trends as told by the great ones in real estate. What's a great one? Someone that's able to make money and still keep their head on straight. Let's face it, this is a tough business. We interview tough people who seem to make it look easy.
Well, welcome to Making a Smarter Agent. It is the holiday season. Some people are busy. Some people are duds. We're about to speak to someone who is definitely not the dud. She is the epitome of busy, working Manhattan and Brooklyn and God knows where else. We're going to get in with Samantha Behringer in just a second. Just a reminder, if you like this podcast, first of all, you can listen to it just about anywhere. It's on iTunes and Google Podcasts and anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can pick this up. But do me a favor, give me 5 stars. If you really have an extra moment, give me a review. These are tools that I use to get other guests, and certainly, it's for the fragile ego, I need just to hear a little bit. In any case, with that plea from me, I want to get on to Samantha Behringer. Samantha, welcome to Making a Smarter Agent.
Well, hello, Ed. Thanks for having me. I'm pretty excited to be doing this with you.
I am so excited to have you as well. As I was saying, it is the holiday season, and I want to just get right into it with you because we're starting the new year, so I do want to find out from you what the plans are there. But why don't you just set the record straight and let the audience know who you are, how long you've been doing it, and exactly what you do, where you do it.
Oh, here we go. All right. So I've been with, here we go. I've been with Douglas Elliman. Yeah, exactly. I'm approaching my 18th year anniversary at Douglas Elliman come February. Interestingly enough, on my birthday, February 7th, I do like gifts.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
A chocolate layer cake, I'm sure.
Yep.
Right?
I'll take one of those. No one says no to that. So yeah, that was when I began at the company in 2002. It was actually before Dottie even came, and we were still Insignia Douglas Elliman at the time. Douglas Elliman had multiple other entities attached to them throughout the years, and at that time it was Insignia, and then we shortly thereafter became Prudential Douglas Elliman, and then eventually just the one and the only Douglas Elliman. So I had originally came as someone who was working in one of the Manhattan offices downtown. I was actually brought in originally as the assistant to Mr. Leonard Steinberg, and did not disappoint. I can assure you that. I had already been a broker actually for quite some time, running a small company down in Soho. But sometimes you got to take a couple of steps back, take 15,000 steps forward, and that's what I did. And I haven't looked back since.
That's amazing.
I am someone who does both Brooklyn and Manhattan extensively, which I find is not something. It's probably becoming a little bit more common now. But
well, hold on before you go on with the territory, and I do want to get to the territories and what you're doing. 18 years with Elliman, there before the great Dottie Herman joined Elliman or owned Elliman. What has been in the time that you've been with Elliman when they actually made that transition? What was the most noticeable change? Can you speak of that? Just I wasn't even prepared to ask that question, but it kind of just popped up in my head here.
Of course, and great question. So when Dottie came in, you could just feel quite an energy that was changing. When you have things like a third-party entity attached to the company that doesn't really have anything to do with real estate per se, it was really nice to have someone come in who was, gone from top to bottom as well, right? Started up through the ranks, a broker, then taking over company offices in the Hamptons and throughout Long Island, and then expanding the reach here into Manhattan within Douglas Elliman. And I have to say that the energy when it first came on was infectious. And for me, that infectious energy has never dissipated. Douglas Elliman for me does not disappoint in that respect. Obviously, 18 years. As I like to tell people, I bleed blue.
And you are always on. If I had to describe this from the interactions that I've had, and it feels like more because we see each other every day on social media, so it's been limited in person. But I'll describe you as, you just really don't stop. You just have this constant, maybe you crash out when you get home at the end of the day. But that's the first thing that I would think of if someone mentioned your name, is just the volume of incredibly positive energy. It's a wonderful characteristic.
Why, thank you. And I've never heard that about myself before. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, come on.
I try and keep it positive. It is my general nature, I will be honest, in a business that can be, a little tough sometimes. So I like to stay positive and perky and as upbeat as possible. I find that stuff translates and continues to be infectious, which is probably the infection that I first got when, Dottie came in and took over, and then the company transitioned from there.
Sure.
I've never been disappointed.
And well, good. And we could go on with that a little bit more, but 18 years, Dottie came in, high energy person, important to the people, the audience that listens to this program is largely real estate salespeople. Okay. It's also salespeople in other industries. And I try to keep up with the promise that I'm interviewing people who are doing better than most. What was this year's anticipated GCI or however you want to define your success?
Sure. I am a top producer at the company, which means that I do gross over 1 million GCI every year. I will tell you the last couple of years have been a little tougher, but still making it happen. Which, I'm doing a jig for that, of course.
That's a big bloody deal. That is a huge, I mean, that you're doing really well. Obviously, it's easier because you're in such a high price point market, but boy, there's a lot of people that do what you do. So the guy in Tulsa, Oklahoma listening may never attain it just because of the price of the properties, but you're now in a competitive, tough market. How do you make things happen? How do you get your buyers, and how do you appeal to and get sellers?
Well, so being in the business for a long time, I'll start with sellers first, and then I'll go into buyers. Your referral network and your buildings that you really own is your bread and butter during these times, right? Where the familiarity and the certainty involved with your potential clientele, a lot of them know who you are already. I have several buildings where, I am doing the most business within the building. So maintaining those buildings and continuing to make them a top priority is 100% key through this market. And that continues throughout other buildings as well, but you really want to nurture you want to take 10 to 20 buildings where you're doing a tremendous amount of business on a regular basis and making sure that you are hounding them regularly. Your repeat
What's a hound?
business,
Define hound. Sorry to stop you, but I want to make sure we don't gloss over this. It's a building that's vertical, so there's a lot of people in those buildings. So my guess is when you say hound, you're mailing, you're emailing, you're calling. What are you doing?
Definitely mailing. I know that it is still the bane of everybody's existence, but they've come up with a lot of different tools and resources with regards to mailing and actually make them informative to a point where people actually look at them. We do a lot of tracking and try and figure out and calls to action on them to, make sure that when you're doing these mailings that they are marinating into the buildings that you're sending them to or the clientele that you're sending them to. So continuing to keep that on the fresh tip is incredibly important. You don't have to just continue to do it for your top buildings. You want to maintain that that's your top priority and trickle it down through everything. In this market, you should be continuing to try and branch out in terms of the type of business that you do. I'll say that I dwell between, a 4 million and under, if I were going to call it my meat and potatoes business. But it's at times like this where you want to spread it out even further. Go to more buyers. Go to more investors who might be wanting to rent out. And continue to maybe change price points or neighborhoods.
And at this point, you're largely a listing agent, a selling agent, both? What's the percentage breakdown in the business that you're getting?
I'm definitely, I would say, a 70-30 in terms of listing. I do procure a good amount of exclusive agreements here in New York. I am also on some developments for Douglas Elliman. So I don't 100% usually count those, but they are in my repertoire of things that are on the web. That's new dev specifically. Resales, yeah, we've been, for this time of year, pretty busy, actually.
Yeah, I could imagine.
It's one of those things where priced correctly, positioned correctly, there are those people who are going to want to make a couple of jumps before the end of the year, or at least solidify things for the new year. So we always see a little activity before the end of the year here.
Sure. Well, I want to hear about the end of the year activity. I also want to hear about next year, and then more about you and how to maintain this incredible breakneck speed, whether you ever take a vacation or anything like that. But, you know, there's two things that I want to get out there. Since so many people who listen to this podcast are from Douglas Elliman, you need to know I will be in New York in January, going to be having a cocktail that I'm going to be inviting you to. That includes you, Samantha. And I will release that via email too. Also, for those that are either down here or traveling, I rented the ballroom at St. Andrew's Country Club on February 18th. I have Howard Lauber, the CEO of Douglas Elliman Real Estate, and Bruce Toll, CEO of Toll Brothers, speaking about real estate and its impact on the economy. It should be really, really interesting. The cost of admission is friendship. I just need you to register with me. Let me know. We'll get you into this. It's kind of my little service to South Florida. It's a great, great fun time. And with that little plea from your moderator, go ahead, Samantha.
I got to give you a props on that one. Your panel with Toll Brothers and Howard is quite a great group. That is a spectacular event. You might see me down there for that. Anyone listening, that is something you want to be a part of, let me assure you.
It's certainly, and for the members of St. Andrew's Country Club who I know are listening to this as well, or many of them, it's a good thing to go to, as well as anyone that we're associated with. So with that little, I had to get that little commercial edge in. Sorry, it's a free podcast, but you know, we gotta brag. We're in a braggart society.
And I backed you up on it. It's a good one.
So you know, terrific. You're working at this breakneck speed. You got over $1 million GCI coming in at a time where a lot of other people are failing. You're telling us that you need to basically, for lack of a better word, babysit some of the key properties or buildings that have been great lead sources for you. How often do you take a vacation? I mean, it's this is like that act on Saturday Night Live where the guy just never stopped working. It was I think Stephen King. He just didn't stop typing the books. But sorry, please tell me.
I know what you're talking about. You know, for me, it's tough during the year. I have a munchkin, although he's not that small. He's 15, but he'll always be my munchkin. And I find that until he goes away to camp or does his summer stuff, that's the only time that my husband and I can take a little time off. So the summertime is usually when I take like an actual vacation. Otherwise, we just do a couple weekends here and there, you know, skiing on the East Coast. We're looking for pain and torture, so we do a little skiing on the East Coast.
Yes, with the rocks and the ice. Although I understand it's getting colder and colder, so you might not.
It's trying to be winter this year. We'll see what happens. You know, we've had two very mild winters, so I think we're due for a doozy. We'll see. We'll see if my predictions are correct.
And how much time do you take in the summer?
I try and take 2 weeks, not consecutively, but I try and take 2 full weeks, or I tune out. I will tell you that one of those weeks tends to be with a group of girls that we all work together, and we go away as well, sort of work, let off steam, and then obviously we do some family stuff.
Sure.
A mixture.
Sure. Well, and I've also seen you at some of these corporate retreats where, you know, we're working, but at the same time, it's probably the more pleasurable end of, you know, going to Aspen. It's not the worst, you know, it's not exactly torture.
No, it's not torture at all. And
yeah.
I will say, no, definitely not. And, you know, those are really intimate events that are extremely informative, and they are work. But if you're smart about it, you extend one day or get there a day early and take, you know, one day for yourself, where you kind of make a little bit of a deep breath out of it, if you will, before you get into the meetings that start at, 7:30, 8 in the morning, and you're in sessions all day. Because it is a lot of work. You're right about that. But if I do find that when I do those retreats, I either try and get there a day early or stay one day after and take a deep breath. Oftentimes there'll be something going on that will be properly related as well, where you're still taking a deep breath, but still also getting some information with your colleagues and superiors and stuff like that. So it's always bringing in, even when you're trying to take a deep breath.
That's good. Yeah, no, listen, I see you, both of us between the meetings. For those that are listening, I'm referring to one meeting that was a national meeting in Aspen, Colorado. We both happened to be there, and I know we were both like feverishly making calls to clients in between these long sessions that were great.
Of course.
But no, so good. Like, somebody's listening in, they're seeing this, and they're like, wow, Million GCI, so busy. How many people are working with you to accomplish this? Do you have a team?
I do have a team, and I have transitioned my team over the last year and a half, and I think you'll find that you're going to see some of this over the next year as the industry changes a little bit, and teams is a newer phenomenon. It's not brand new, but they're becoming extremely commonplace, and they're changing, and the dynamics and the structures of them are changing. And so I have followed suit for the most part. So I've actually scaled down the amount of people that I've had, so that it can be a little bit more structured, a little bit more experienced agents, less of just bringing on young people and training them, and more so bringing in higher end brokers, more experienced brokers onto the team. Because as I see teams get bigger and bigger and bigger, and some of them are 15 plus people, right? It's a lot. And for me and my business and the price point and the areas that I work in, I find that one of the things that my sellers in particular are looking for is me all the time. They do not want me to, show up for the listing appointment, get the exclusive, and then never be there again. They're going to require me to be there, 90% of the time. Obviously, no one can be everywhere 100% of the time, and I make that very clear during my listing pitches. But I do hear it from sellers significantly. So in doing so, I have changed my team to make the individuals more reliable, more experienced, and more able to work with me on my exclusives, so that my sellers can have a bit more comfort and certainty that things are being taken care of correctly, and I didn't just pawn it off to my junior broker on my team. That's very important for me.
Sure. How many people are on your team now? Can you answer that?
I am a team of 5, including myself.
And do you have an assistant as well?
I do. I have a assistant, although that role has been changing over the last couple of years, in my opinion. And in essence, it's more of a team coordinator, operations coordinator. Assistant starts to feel a little archaic sometimes, and you want to give people a little bit more responsibility. Sometimes I feel like making people feel included in a different way makes them rise to the challenge, if you will, and rise to the occasion and really get involved and feel like they're part of a group. And that's important for me on my team. So I like to give people their place, right? This is you own this here.
Yeah, no, and it's great. So they're getting their own building, their own territory?
So what I will do is, depending upon the property, after I speak or meet with a seller, I will decide who is the best person, the best fit on my team to work on that listing with me, based on personalities, based on price point, based on location, whatever I think is going to fit best for the seller and the property. That's the main goal, obviously. So once I have done my due diligence with the seller and all of that, then I will start having conversations with the people on my team and make sure that I'm lining them up perfectly. And then obviously it does require a conversation with the seller, of course. And I find that those things need to be done immediately, not after the fact. Oh, by the way, Sally will be here showing while I'm not around. It's something that really needs to be communicated at the onset so that they know exactly what's going on, instead of, oh, well, maybe this isn't exactly what we had discussed at the beginning, or not what I was envisioning for the sale of my home. So as long as they understand that.
Yeah, just so if I could ask, does Sally, or that fictitious Sally, bring in any of her own business, or is it always Samantha bringing Sally the deal? Does anyone ever make rain like you do?
No, I will tell you that that is not uncommon to my team, although that doesn't mean it doesn't vary. But, you know, there's been a lot of, we do top producers retreats. We do these events that you had just spoken about in Aspen, and we do a lot of communicating with our peers, obviously. And there's been a lot of talk about, and it's hard, but basically that, yes, the team leader tends to be bringing in 80 to 95% of the business. And that's why you see some teams restructuring. Where is the value there? Because at the end of the day, the team leader does need help, a little bit of help, right? Because when they have a little bit of assistance that is reliable, and I don't want to use perfect, but I'm hoping for perfect, then they're in a position, we're always striving for perfection. But then the team leader is in a position to be obtaining more business. And that is the circle of real estate life. And if that cannot be a fine oiled machine, then something is gumming up the works and needs an immediate change. I find that waiting too long these days as the market changes a little bit. Listen, I don't like to admit it, but the market and the industry is changing in terms of, you know, a little bit of technology, a little bit of this. There's a couple of different factors that, you know, we all are aware of, but nothing exists inside a vacuum. And so it's smart, in my opinion, to change as the industry changes as well. And so this has been my reaction and my response to those changes, sort of getting lean and mean, bringing in a more higher end broker, if you can get them. It's not easy, of course, but someone with more experience, because it used to be a little bit more where you would farm, bring in the junior brokers, farm them in through the team, and then eventually they become a little bit more producing. It's hard to do. It's hard to farm, teach, procure business, and do all of that. So,
sure. So do you foresee a time, somebody brought this up to me, and I've always wanted to ask, I always want to ask you and people like you who've done so well this question. Do you ever foresee a time where you would have licensed brokers, very experienced, very good, but working for you as a W-2 employee, not a 1099, someone who's actually being paid, and you might give them some type of bonus based on the commissions that come in, or should I say Douglas Elliman, you put it through that way. But for the most part, they're getting a salary, and that's what it, because, you know, if you're making all the business happen, a few people have talked about this as a new model. What are your thoughts on that?
You're absolutely right. And I have heard this. This is a new model where instead of doing the standard, you know, we spoke about it before, usually you have team leader, you have members, brokers on your team, and then you have your assistant, right? That is pretty much the standard structure for the most part, or at least has been over the last few years. But there are a lot of top producing team leading brokers that are changing it up a little bit, where the assistant marketing coordinator, operations coordinator, whatever title they're giving them these days, is sitting at the desk. They're in the office all day, during the day, no weekends, on salary. You know, it depends on the business model of each individual and what the book of their business encompasses. For me, and the way that I do things, I get nervous that is a short-term scenario. And the reason I say that is because the scope of the business, from a operations, marketing, whatever you want to call them these days, coordinator, assistant, is not going to change very much. And if they're not showing and getting involved with real estate and potentially getting to a point where they can maybe convert or bring in some business vis-a-vis contacts and feeling a part of it, I'm going to tell you, I feel that it can easily breed a little animosity. Brokers work on commission, right? We make money in chunks of change. And then you've got someone sitting at a desk on a capped salary that, quite frankly, I don't know where there's room for growth. And so I just wonder, how long will that person want to stay in that position? I don't know the answer.
You know what's interesting? Just going off script again here, I know of a firm that's done this, and the people are great, very good interpersonal skills, very hardworking. They know real estate. They, and how do I say politely, they suck at selling. They suck at prospecting. They suck at actually picking up the phone and doing the stuff that I know you very well have the guts to do, and I do too. But these are people that really, they grew up in a household where mother said children should be seen and never heard. And unfortunately, they carried that on to their adulthood. And so that's
Right.
why I asked the question, because I'm seeing a lot of people like that. The first thing someone does, I want to, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I'll go into sales. That's easy. Yeah.
I'll go into sales. I'll be a real
with
estate broker. That seems like great. On TV it looks spectacular. Isn't it amazing? Like in
Oh my goodness.
or am I not fantastic in 2 seconds if I start real estate?
Are you kidding me?
I know that's the biggest misconception, but
I went into this so that I would have a washboard stomach and golden tan and be 15 years younger. And
you're almost there.
Didn't work out. It didn't work out.
You're almost there.
You're very sweet. I'll tell my wife that.
That is my concern with that model. I don't know where the growth potential is for that candidate. And I might not be the right team for that scenario. Like I said, I don't know what the answer is. But for me, I feel that when my right-hand person, my assistant, if you will, is involved in my day-to-day aspects, including negotiations, pitching, prospecting, all of the above, I feel that they're learning something and they're getting to a place where they can evolve if they want. I don't know that is something that can be done if they're just a stationary, sit at the desk person. And having been, I will tell you, I started in this business as a receptionist for a real estate company when I was 21 years old in New York. And when you do not make commission and you sit there and watch everyone run in and out, by the way, in and out, there's lots of movement, right? It's exciting. It's energetic. And there's, you got to run to this appointment. You're back in the office taking calls and you're running out to the next appointment. When you're sitting at the desk doing absolutely nothing, it starts to make you feel like you're not a part of something as much. And I think for me, and the way I run my team, is I want everyone to feel like they're a part of something, right? We're learning, we're growing. I'm helping you, you're helping me. Let's enjoy ourselves. Making money, having fun, and learning are my top 3 priorities. Not necessarily in that order.
So say that again. Give us this is Samantha's 3 top priorities. Go.
Making money, always learning and growing, and having some fun. Not necessarily in those order. It changes. But I say the fun part because this is a tough business. And you have got to be thick-skinned, especially for the new people coming in. Even if you're coming in, under the umbrella of a team, it's still one of those things where you've got to create the structure. You've got to create the goals. You've got to make sure that you're on yourself, right? Because there's no one else that's going to be. So when you include them in that level, I feel like it's an excitement that carries on. And when they get excited, then they're having more fun. And when I say fun, I mean that people who are enjoying themselves at work better. They work with a great attitude. They're happy to do this. They're more inclined to assist with things maybe outside of the scope of what they were brought on to do. That's a happy, growing, we're in it together team.
Sure. No, listen, all really, really good sound advice. Let me ask you, it's like 2 more areas that I want to get to before we call quits for New Year's here. But there's just a couple of things. One, across the country, there's been these eye-buying services that have come in that have been, we'll give you a certain amount of money for your house, or we'll be able to instantaneously sell, or purple bricks,
like
or
instant offers and stuff like that. Instant
offers and other services that have come in, like the Zillows of the world that might want to buy instantly. How you've seen in 20 years some major technological changes. I'm in Florida. We deal with it a lot. What's going on in Brooklyn and New York? I mean, has that been really impacted by the technologies, good or bad? And please give us your opinion.
So this is going to sound a little boring of an answer. Yes and no. So we know that I've been at Douglas Elliman 18 years, but I had my license a few years prior. So I'm in this 20 years. And I'm going to tell you, when I first started, there was barely any internet. There was definitely no cell phones. Maybe you had a beeper. So I can tell you that since then, not very much has changed. There are a couple of key things in New York, given that we are an attorney review state, right? We've got boatloads of documentation that must be sifted through by both attorneys on both sides. And, you've got management companies involved, title companies. It's, it's a pain in the butt here. We don't make it easy, and the paperwork makes you want to maybe give up. So and the reason I say yes and no is that in that time when I first started to now, the only thing that's really changed is the internet. And the only thing that has done is just make it easier for me to find listings a little quicker. That's it. When it comes down to the meat and potatoes of selling an apartment, here's what has to happen in New York, and in my opinion will never change. A listing broker gets called by a buyer's broker, or a buyer directly for that matter. You show the apartment. They either like it or don't like it. They make an offer. You go to contract and you close. There is no technology involved in any of those factors. They all require a human being and being in person for the most part. You can probably get someone to do power of attorney at your closing.
They could also find it on Street Easy directly from the homeowner, or they could have some other discount service put it up on something similar. I mean, you really don't see any interruption by the...
You don't see it as much. You really don't. And I'm going to tell you what, here's one of the reasons why I think, aside from the fact that the information and the due diligence required here in New York is extremely convoluted and would probably make most people go gray and or bald, excuse me. I think that the amount of money at stake here and the amount of risk factor here in comparison is just too much to just leave it to chance that you're just like an app. I'm not having someone pick me up and bring me to dinner. I'm purchasing a 3 to 5, 6, 7, even $1 million home. This is not something that you use an app for, in my opinion. I want someone involved. If it was me, there's absolutely no way. And I get that in some price points, right? Maybe in smaller markets or different parts of the country where maybe you're talking about, 100, 200, 300, 500 and under, right? Where it's maybe a little bit more obtainable. I can see where that would probably be used. But in New York, I do not know that I see it happening the way that it could happen outside of the city. And for some of those reasons. I also think that in New York, you do have a lot of buyers brokers, right? Buyers hire brokers because they don't want to be bothered with this. They want someone else to do it, right? Everyone's busy. You're busy. I'm busy. That's why we have a full-time job. Finding and buying an apartment and or selling an apartment is a full-time job. And if you already have a full-time job, why would you want two?
Sure.
I don't know that.
No. Listen, I wouldn't be in the same career. I was just, again, trying to touch upon what is in some people's heads out there. Certainly, my wife's a professional organizer, and some of her business does come from. It's called, if you want to see, Organize New York Palm Beach. Just Organize Palm Beach on Instagram, and it's so much of her business comes from the brokerage community, or a lot of opportunities certainly can. So I've oftentimes looked at that. But last thing here,
yes, sir,
that I want to get to. We have Bob. He's our theoretical character. Bob just got started in real estate. Hi, Bob.
Welcome.
And Bob is living at home with mom. He's new in the business, and he needs to begin to make money in real estate. Doesn't want to stay at mom's house for too long, but also doesn't want to become just a rental guy only. He wants to really get his career going. How would you put him on the right path in his first year of business? What would you do if you were Bob?
So in New York City, unless you already have a boatload of embedded contacts, either you're from there or you're from the tri-state area or your family's from there, you did touch upon rentals, which is obviously the first step, but kind of something we were touching on before is this is the kind of thing as a new broker where you really do. You want to join a team, honestly. They're going to help. They're going to provide more resources, more potential for business, and more opportunities. to come into the business alone, especially now as it's just, we're in a little bit of a funky market, but we're also in a changing industry a little bit. Listen, nothing stays the same. Everything ebbs and flows a little bit and changes, and real estate is not absolved and no different. So I think this is where a broker, especially in New York, should be looking for a team to join. What kind of value can you add to the team? Are you ready to put your head down and do whatever the team leader or the team coordinator needs? Because that's the kind of stuff that team leaders are looking for. And if they can find people who are hungry and who want to work and show good work ethic and reliability, and can just be, I have someone new on my team who she's so intense. She's got me running for things. She's giving me a hard time about stuff in a good way. Like, hey, what about this? I'm like, that's what I want to see. That's the kind of stuff where a team leader is going to really pay attention to you and continue to help you grow, because once you grow, that's good for the team as well.
Sure. Well, look,
but rentals is the big part too.
Rentals is the big part too. Okay, Bob can't get away from the rentals. You got to do what you got to do.
Can't get away from the rentals.
We've all put our time in there, Bob.
Got to. Renters become purchasers, and it is a fantastic way to build a book of business.
Listen, Samantha, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. With your permission, I'll put all your contact info in the show notes so people could see and find you, again, with whatever information you want updated. Certainly you should Google her. Samantha, you're beautiful, fabulous. I hope to see you next month in New York.
Thank you for listening to Making a Smarter Agent. Do me a favor. If you liked Making a Smarter Agent, please go to Apple Podcasts or any of the podcast services you might be listening through and give me 5 stars. I look forward to seeing you next time. And remember, connect with Rain Nation, that's RAIGNATION, on Facebook. It's part think tank, part group therapy for realtors, all coaching, and it's affordable. Please tune in again next week to listen to another exciting episode of Making a Smarter Agent.